Well, to start off, Beth, I want to say I feel a kinship with you because maybe that's why I'm such a fan of yours, because of the fact that not only am I also from the Midwest, I also have a mom named Diane. So
No,
I do. So I think people like us have to stick together, Beth. It's the only way.
we do.
It's
You know, they love to stick together. My mom and I, we have a podcast together, and we got sent some wine as part of like one of our little ads, and she has a friend that lives one house down who's also named Diane.
Oh,
and she's like, I invited Diane over. We had the wine. It was she's like a perfect salesperson because she means it. She's like, it was delicious.
I just know that our moms would get along. That's just how it goes. You know, when you just like get a feeling from somebody, like,
yes.
I've listened to your podcast, so I know your mom's voice and sort of get the vibe of her, but like, I just know they just be besties.
I think too, like, she's like, we're still like, you know, we recorded that about a year ago, and now we're into season 2. It just took a while for it to come out free. It was behind a paywall, but the point is, she's like, that is her. But I also think the early days of the pod, the beginning episodes with like Maria's mom, it's like a little more formal. She's like very polite, and she is that. She's never like let loose and like starts cussing or something. Sure. She does have like that formality of a mom, but it is a little more like structured, and as we go on, she gets more comfortable. But anyway, what state are you from?
I'm from Michigan.
Okay, and that's where she's originally from.
Yeah, right. So I mean, I know, and typically it's funny. I feel like typically there's this like rivalry between people from Michigan and Ohio, but I do feel like because I live in California now, so it's like I do feel like when you find somebody from one of those states, you're okay with each other, because it's like here we can be friends because we sort of get each other in a way. Yeah, you know.
I never really bought into the rivalry, but my sisters, well, for grad school went to OSU. And my mom was always a U of M fan, even though she went to Wittenberg. But I know there is that weird OSU U of M.
I know. I went to Michigan State, so I'm sort of sort of like
a Spartan, right?
Spartan, you got it, Beth. Yes, Spartan. Yes. How is your mom handling the pandemic?
I know, she's been very careful. She's on the air. She's been the one who listened to stay-at-home orders and taking it very seriously. She's, you know, to be honest, she's been lonely. She used to look after my middle sister's kids many times a week, like while she worked as a nurse, and so my sister worked as a nurse. Mm-hmm. So like that was tough to adjust to, you know, not getting hugs and things like that. Yeah. So she did struggle. We then decided to start doing season 2 of the podcast, so that sort of was able to connect her with other moms who are also in isolation, and me. And I was able to send her an iPad so she can kind of like even just see bigger, you know, like on the Zoom and stuff. Yeah. So and that connects her to me and other people a little easier as well.
Yeah.
So
no, these ways we connect now are so interesting. You know, you really get a vibe for how much that human interaction is such a vital part of just our existence. It's very odd. You know, speaking of your mom, there's a moment in the special where you sort of compliment the fact that a mother and daughter are there together. I'm wondering what Diane's reaction to the special herself has been.
She is my number one fan. You know, obviously she's my mom. She's going to be biased, but you know, I guess you're right. Like I think some parents don't love all their children's work. Sure. My mom has always been someone who, when it comes to stand-up comedy, well, I have an old joke. I think it was in the first album where she, years ago, like 8 years ago, she said, stand-up comedy is so hard, it should be an Olympic event. And if it were, you would win gold in women's stand-up comedy.
See, you're even getting the female comic thing from your mom.
Yeah, but so that was hilarious. But now, watching this special, she, of course, watched it. She saw me working it, too, because we did our podcast, which is called We Called Your Mom. We've mentioned it now, but I'm just saying, basically, my mom and I call other people's moms. So we did a live one in Montreal last summer at Just for Laughs Festival. So she was with me, and I was also doing running this hour, or a version of it. You know, like, stand up, it's not the same for everyone, but for me, it's like, you know, a stone sitting on the beach, and as many times as you tell the joke, or the waves rolling into, ideally forming it into a marble. You know, you're polishing and polishing. So those were the rough version of the jokes she saw. there's uncomfortability, there's
Sure.
change, there's the awkwardness. And then she saw it again in Louisville around Christmas time, because that's where most of her family is, and my grandma. Um, and so this was her first time seeing it polished,
Mm.
and she texted me something like, "I know we call you B because you're brave, bold, and beautiful."
Oh, come on.
Very sweet. I know my mom is like, I have my mom's words tattooed on my
Yeah,
body. She always says, like,
it's amazing.
I'm very lucky to have a mom who is an artist. She's a pianist and now piano teacher, retired, but
Mhm.
to have a mom that supports the arts,
It's
that has
amazing.
always been behind me when it
Yeah.
comes to that. So I think her version of like having those moms there, I joke about it, guys. Obviously that wasn't a plant. I
Right.
can't,
Yeah, right.
I'm sure people do plants and stuff for funny bits, but that just happened to have a
Mhm.
mom and daughter there, which is kind of
Yeah.
wild if you think about it, because I've said it before, when if you've come see me on the road, I mentioned how I love when people come with their sisters or their moms or
Mhm.
whatever. Sorry, that was my friend Jules just coming in. That scared me
I
so bad.
thought it was like a
Hi
bird
Jules,
flying
I'm
in.
I'm doing an interview and I go because I was not expecting it.
Thought you might be in
No,
trouble.
thank you. No, it's my friend.
Okay.
She's just
Okay.
dropping something responsibly in a
Every
mask.
yes, love that. Checking all the boxes.
I love you, Jules.
Hmm.
Thank you. That was hilarious.
Look at that.
It's like I knew she was dropping it off too, and it still scared me.
Of course.
Anyway.
No, it's always.
Okay. But it was cool to have them on. I've said on the road in the past, I love when people come with their moms, even if I am talking about something sexual. My mom is someone who doesn't like part humor, she says.
Mhm.
So my mom's not someone who loves like these graphic, but she'll say she likes mine. She's like, "Well, you do it in a smart way," these types of things. But there is going to be an uncomfortability with a parent when it comes to sex. I
Yeah.
talk about the spectrum of mother in the special, and it's true. It's like I did have a nice middle ground with my mom. I'm someone who likes to maintain a somewhat formal relationship with my
Mhm.
mom, in the sense that we're not talking about like, how was your orgasm? And, but also not cutting that part of our lives off because we're
Yeah.
humans. So I think obviously there's power in information and education. And if I have kids, I'd like to be able to be open with them about that. I think it can prevent a lot of the problems that the world
Sure.
has when you can just share the information children need to know, so they don't think you can get pregnant in a hot tub or not pregnant in a hot. There's so many weird rumors like you can't get pregnant in the hot tub. It's like, yes, you can. What do
I
you
know.
mean?
But I think back too to like the sex ed I got in high school, and it's like crazy. Like it's not even it's not don't even call it education. It's just like some guy who's like not getting paid enough money to like have to like show you what a condom is, and it's like so it's just shockingly bad. But I think like the dialogue that you're able to start in the special is so important, and I think really, not to get too granular with it, but I think comedy really is sort of a catalyst for these conversations in many ways. I imagine people are watching the special and maybe, I don't know, having those conversations with family members maybe a little bit. I think that's cool. You talked about process. I wanted to ask about that. What a terrible way to start a question, but I promise it's not terrible.
No. But
You
you're
know,
right. I have gotten some messages because people are in quarantine with their parents. So they're like, I did watch
right,
it with my
exactly.
parent. So some of it was a little awkward, but it's good.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
anyway,
for
good
somebody
to
like
have this.
yeah, for somebody like you who I think probably works out material on the road or wherever in front of audiences, I imagine that this pandemic has really shifted your creative process just on its head. Have you been able to be creative during this time? Are you writing? Have you been able to find a new rhythm?
So I would say, like, now that it just feels so long, we thought it would be 6 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it was,
Mhm.
and now on Saturday I'm performing for the first time in pretty much almost 6 months.
Wow.
Which means the last time I performed for a crowd was my special on March 7th. So I'm terrified. I really am. I think it's all about when you see a comic. Where are they in the process of whatever they're making? So if you saw me in Seattle on March 3rd of this year, you loved me. You think I'm really good at what I do because
Right.
I was about to film my special. So it
Right.
better be in working order.
Hmm.
And if you see me this Saturday, I might dash your dreams of being your favorite comic of all time. I mean, obviously I'm kidding and people can be forgiving, but it's like, it's all about when you see a comic. It
Sure.
really is. It's like, I just put out a special, so I don't want to do all the material from that special, because
Or,
like there's this weird thing that comics believe that all that material is dead now. When truly, some people like to hear it on the road, and you need to find a balance. People like hearing the hits or whatever.
right.
But as comics, in our mind, or what we've been taught, most of us, is, okay, that material's done. Let's start over. And the
Mhm.
start over is difficult. And for me, it was 3 years before I put this hour out, since my last half hour. And that's for a lot of reasons. I was working on television shows and movies and things like that, which I worked very hard to be able to do.
Yeah.
It's not easy to get into that. So it's like, I'm grateful to have that work and love that work. And they usually work very well with me. Like, they'll allow me to leave to do shows and stuff.
Mhm.
But that extends my process of
Yeah.
building a new hour.
Yeah.
So now to answer your question, how am I being creative? I am writing on the TV and movie side, several different projects, and I'm often called on to do what's called punch up. So
Sure.
make the script funnier, essentially, is what it means, and add jokes. And so I've been doing that, which keeps me creative. But the
Mhm.
beginning of this, I needed a break. So I was
Right.
like zero stand-up, not even thinking about writing jokes. I just worked really hard for,
Yeah.
over 3 years to put that together. So I haven't been in stand-up mode. And this Saturday, I'm terrified.
So what's the show Saturday? Is it like,
It's an outdoor, socially distanced, small crowd.
sure.
And they've been now doing it for a couple weeks, and it seems to be like a well-oiled machine. And so my friend Paul Elia is running it.
Mhm.
And he invited me, and I thought, well, I'm gonna have to do Conan here on the 7th, and I need to like practice talking in a funny way
Right. Yeah.
instead of just typing it into a script.
Right.
um
Yeah.
it's definitely repetitive. When I first started, I hated the idea that stand up is repetition, that you would just be doing the same things over and over again. um but that is part of it. That's how you make the jokes better and elevate them to more than a tweet.
Yeah, right, for sure. Is there a fear that when all this is said and done, that a lot of you and your colleagues might have just a bunch of like COVID material? Like, are you checking in with other comics? Be like, hey, do you have a joke about, sweatpants and Cheetos or something? Do you know what I mean?
See, that's actually something that almost paralyzes me. That's actually why I wasn't writing
Sorry
any
to,
stand up at
sorry to bring
all.
it up.
Oh, no, 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 no. I don't mean it in any sort of like horrific
Yeah,
way. I just mean it makes me say, what do I have to say right now and why? I mean, obviously, as you know, just our world in general, America and our culture is dealing with something much bigger than us, or than me. And it's like, I'd rather, like, what do I have to say about it that's going to make it, that needs to be heard? So
mhm,
there's that aspect of things happening, where I feel like, what do I have to add? And I said a lot just then, and let it be. So there's that. And then there's the idea of, like you're saying, which is we've all been given a prompt.
right.
Who's going to be the most original? I
Hmm.
mean, like you're saying, are we fighting over, I haven't worn jeans in a while?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and so part of me was annoyed by all of this, like people who were creating quarantine content. It was like a huge eye roll for me. And who am I to judge? I wasn't creating. So it's more of like, comics sort of feed off each other, especially in the club. It's like, oh, this person's getting up a lot. Like, you push each other because it's a very singular activity for the most
Yeah.
part. And I think it's a good amount of like healthy competition, but it's like, well, we're not out there doing that. So what you're seeing is online. And it's like, really? Am I getting a green screen now? So for me, I was a little salty about it. Like, why do we have to do this? I didn't want to do Zoom shows. Not, and then it makes you feel like a snob. And it's just like, well, no,
Right.
my job is human interaction and energy exchange with a crowd.
Yeah. Well, it's funny.
Why would I do a Zoom
Yeah, well,
show?
I put these two things together this morning. Actually, it's funny you bring that up, because I interview a lot of drag queens. I'll do like interviews for like Drag Race or whatever, and I never really put two and two together. Obviously, there is such a connection there between comedy and drag, because you're feeding off of an audience. It's reliant on being at a crowded bar, and a lot of these drag queens are having that same problem where it's like, I'm being lapped by people who are like doing all this crazy stuff on Instagram, doing these Zoom shows, and it's almost like another level of competition. It's like, are you going to keep up? Because I am, you know?
Yeah.
It's interesting to sort of connect those two. I mean, has it made you think about the longevity of the industry and just the future of the industry? If people don't start putting their masks on, Beth, I mean, we might be here for a very long time.
I know. It's very frustrating. I also, at the same time, it's like, well, I don't want to tear other comics down, but it's like, we were told not to leave. And by leaving, you're kind of extending it and ruining it for everybody else. So I'm out here like not doing stand up like I think I'm supposed to. And you're out what feels like getting a leg up while also maybe getting people sick or yourself sick or whatever it is. And then they'll say things like, oh, it's a super safe show. Everybody come out. And it's just like,
I know.
It's hard to believe. It's hard to know what to do.
It is. It's hard to know what to do with anything, right? And then you feel, and this is big picture. This isn't just comedy, but it's like, you hear a friend tell you, oh, we went out to dinner and it was super safe. And it's like, did you have to?
Yeah.
And it's like, who am I to judge?
Right. I know.
It's just you're just in between a rock and a hard place, no matter what you do and no matter what you say. It's just so difficult. But you do
and then bigger comics are doing like the drive-ins with, hundreds of cars, I think, if not thousands. My gosh. I think some people are doing like the big parking lots of arenas. I mean, those are for the people who would normally sell at a theater. And I mean, I don't really know what I think of that because that's not my reality. It's not like I have the opportunity to do it. So I'm just like, would I? I don't know. If I was used to playing arenas, then what's much different than playing for cars?
Right.
Because arenas are not intimate. Arenas are a victory lap in your career. It's a money grab. Like, that's not to connect with a crowd. That's to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I don't mean that in the slight. I'm just saying, like, I get it. I'm not saying like that's bad that they're doing that. It's just like, that's not my reality. I really do prefer, like, my dream is small theaters or places that I can still feel close to the crowd. I like playing theaters when I'm opening for a famous person. I think that's very fun. My job is 20 minutes, come out, get people warmed up for the person they love. So, but for me, I do like being close to people.
Yeah, I know. And God knows when that's going to happen again, Beth. It's crazy.
I touched somebody in my special.
I
fist bumped them.
Well, I know. It is funny to watch that. Like, when you're watching the special, you're like, oh, remember this? Remember sitting next to somebody? Remember sitting next to a stranger?
Yeah, or even a stranger, not being worried about touching them or having them breathe in you. Speaking of like what everyone feels like at the times where you can't say anything right or whatever, somebody of course commented like, oh, is Minneapolis exempt from masks and social distancing? And it's like right on the marquee in the video, you can see it says March 7th.
Right.
Which is before, nobody had shut down yet. It wasn't until the 14th when I was in St. Louis that it was like a state of emergency and I just flew home instead of doing the shows. But it's just like, it kind of just speaks to the idea that we're all just fucking policing each other or something. Sorry, I cussed.
Please.
But it's just like, I don't know. It's tough to know what to do in general. We're all supposed to like participate in society from our homes digitally.
Yeah.
And
it's just exhausting.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. One thing I did want to ask you about is a little bit of a pivot, but I wanted to ask you about this Twitter thread that Lori Kilmartin wrote. I don't know if you saw this, but she had a thread like maybe a couple weeks ago where she said, quote, "The comedy industry is absolute shit, sexist, ageist, and lazy." And then sort of went on a little bit of a rant about how things are set up for her male colleagues, and I guess your male colleagues, to sort of succeed further into their careers. And into, like she's saying, into their age or whatever. Yeah, like you're saying. Exactly. Yeah, and I feel sort of gross, I guess, as a man asking you, about gender in comedy. But I mean, where do you think things stand? And do you think that the pandemic at all might impact things one way or another? Maybe for good, maybe for bad. I don't know.
Well, the pandemic's definitely affecting, for example, like in one small way is I'm not on the road. doing clubs for the reasons we just discussed. And so that means someone's got to do it, which means someone who really wants it and has been waiting to do it, so they will do it. It's just like, you know, it's like the idea of people saying, well, women should just, like, for example, thinking of a sexist moment that I experienced coming up, you know, like maybe my hair getting pulled in the back of a club, or my ass getting smacked or something like this. Both of those things have happened to me. I'm not crying about it. I'm just saying they happen.
Sure.
So then you say, well, what? You boycott the club? And who does that hurt? It hurts me. Okay, so then do I report it to someone and then I'm a problem? Or do I, you know, you're put in a position that is difficult. So if I leave, someone will happily take my place. It's like, that's how toxic environments remain.
Yeah.
Because by me taking a stand, I don't have power to take a stand. It changes nothing except for my career trajectory, my path. It only hurts me technically. So my options are limited. And same with what's happening in the clubs right now. I'm not going to be there. And I'm not saying those clubs are bad. There's some of them that are doing really well. Like, I've seen videos that Helium Portland put out. Helium's a comedy club in Portland.
Yeah.
They are straight up like social distancing and straight up spraying with medical grade, like an exterminator after shows. So it's like, I think that's the answer. And still, I've talked to the club manager, and they said they're experiencing people combating them about having to wear a mask inside.
Oh, God.
So it's like, that's what we're dealing with. Like, so that's what's changing, in the sense that speaking to, I guess, kind of both things, both Lori's thread in a way, and then also what will happen in the future industry. If I'm not going to do it, somebody's going to do it. And I'm not saying they're taking my place, and I'm upset about that. I'm just saying, like, there will always be somebody who will do it.
Yeah. Totally.
So, and we don't have a union. So it's not like there's protections in place. And it's true. I do think men are set up probably more easily to succeed into their geriatric years, you know? In the sense that they're, you know, men are allowed to just sort of age in the public eye. And of course we are allowed to too, but I think everybody would be lying to themselves if they didn't say that youth is a commodity, and often for women more, when it comes to your favorite comics.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, it's such an interesting time, obviously, for the world, but just for the industry. It'll be fascinating to see how things play out. But one thing I can say, Beth, is that your special is incredible, and everybody needs to watch it. And thank you for giving us some laughs during this crazy time. It was such a special thing, and really, the special it manages to be smart and funny and honest, but also very eloquent in a way that I think is very difficult to pull off. So I congratulate you for doing that and talking about the stuff that you talk about, because it's great. So congratulations on everything, and thank
you.
Beth.
Of course, it was so fun to get to talk with you.
You as well, from one Midwesterner with a mom named Diane to another.
Of Diane. We're of Diane.
We're of Diane. Well, have a great rest of your day, Beth. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time.
You too.